This is it. Love in Saigon, Chum.
Bill Zimmerman, ABC News, July.
Stephen Gear, ABC News at the airport in Minneapolis.
Richard Blackmore, CBS News, Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Steve Bell, ABC News, Jackson, Mississippi.
Peter Grant, CBS News, in Hong Kong. This is Jerry King, CBC News, London.
Marvin Towns, CBS News, Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland.
Joe Dembo, CBS News, Rome. Roger Mudd, CBS News, Tallahassee.
Charles Corral, CBS News, on the road in East Lansing, Michigan. Richard C. Huddle, CBS News.
The American Forces Vietnam Network News Department presents The World in Review, a look at the events that shaped news headlines and made history this past week. The World in Review is compiled and edited in the AFVN newsroom from the facilities of the major American networks and wire services.
Good evening. I'm Navy Director. The top story this week, a release by Vice Presidential candidate Thomas Eagleton. He disclosed Tuesday that he has been hospitalized 3 times in the past 12 years for a nervous condition. He said rumors about his health have followed him throughout his political career and that newsmen had raised legitimate questions about his health, so he decided to bring his medical history into the open at a news conference. David Shoemaker of CBS has details, and then ABC's Harry Reisner talks to Senator McGovern.
To confront the rumors of emotional breakdown and alcoholism was made several days ago, but the announcement was delayed until McGovern could be at his running mate's side. Eagleton was plainly nervous as he told reporters the story of his breakdowns.
On 3 occasions in my life, I have voluntarily gone into hospitals as a result of nervous exhaustion and fatigue. Few in this room know me well. Tom Ottenat of the Post-Dispatch and Ed O'Brien of the St. Louis Globe-Democrat, and a few others have followed my career. They know me to be, I think, a rather intense, hard-driving person. And as a younger man, I must say that I drove myself too far. And I pushed myself terribly, terribly hard. Long hours, day and night. And after that campaign was over, I did experience an exhaustion and fatigue. And I was, on my own volition, hospitalized in Barnes Hospital, St. Louis, Missouri, Kings Highway and Euclid Avenues. Once again, in 1964, the period of that hospitalization, as best I could recall it, was probably 4 weeks. And it was started around December the 1st and culminated perhaps on the first day of January or soon after the new year of 1961. The second experience was 4 days in length. I went to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, between Christmas, December 25, 1964, and New Year's Day, January 1, 1965. During that week, a holiday week, I was in Mayo's for 4 days, having a physical examination. Part of the manifestation of my fatigue and exhaustion relates to the stomach. I'm not too dissimilar from the fellow on the Alka-Seltzer ad who says, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. But I do get, when I do overwork and tire myself, I do get kind of a nervous stomach situation. It's one of the physical manifestations of what I've experienced. And the third and final time, ladies and gentlemen, was in perhaps middle or late September of 1966, where I once again went back to Mayo Clinic, once again exhausted and fatigued. The length of that stay was, I think, approximately 3 weeks. So I believe, and I have every confidence, that at age 42, I've learned how to pace myself. I've learned how to measure my own energies and to know the limits of my own endurance. Insofar as this campaign is concerned, it is my intent to give it all that I have, but on a measured basis, not to repeat the experiences that I have experienced in those prior years heretofore mentioned.
Eagleton also confirmed rumors his care had included psychiatric counseling and electric shock treatments, but he denied another rumor that he'd also been an alcoholic.
involved in any iota or way, shape, or form whatsoever. Now that this has been mentioned, that has been a rumor that has plagued me for all these recent years, and I can assure you categorical, without hesitation, unequivocally, there has been no trace, no hint, no iota, not one iota of alcoholism as part of these rumors. I mean, as part of the actual facts, albeit it has been part of the rumors.
Eagleton was also asked why he delayed telling McGovern of this medical history.
I discussed when we went to Florida, when it had been speculated in the press that I was one of several people being roughly considered for the vice presidency, we discussed amongst ourselves whether this development would necessitate my disclosing this medical history background that I've disclosed here today. I told her then that I thought it would. Again, I reiterate what I said earlier. I realized that once, if you were to be lucky enough to be selected by George McGovern to be his running mate in a national 50-state campaign, the rumors that, as I say, have followed my family, my wife, in previous years would all the more abound nationwide. We discussed it at some length. We both agreed that we had an opportunity to render service. I thought I did. We were satisfied my health was sound, that I had learned the lessons of the past, and that the risk of having to divulge these things was a risk that we would face up to.
Though he'd not known of Eagleton's breakdowns, McGovern told reporters it made no difference.
I'm fully satisfied, and if I had known every detail that he discussed with me this morning, which is exactly what he has just told you here now, he would still have been my choice for the vice presidency of the United States.
Although McGovern was not aware of the rumors until recently, members of his staff knew of them at the Miami convention. One had checked with Eagleton's doctor. Others discussed the reports with newsmen, even denied them. But no word of all this reached McGovern. On the Thursday of the convention, before making his final decision, McGovern even asked Eagleton point blank if he had any health problems. And Eagleton, answering in the present tense, said no. It was only in the past week, when the rumors became particularly persistent, that McGovern was told and decided the full story should be revealed before a distorted version was published. David Shoemaker, CBS News, with the McGovern campaign.
Yes, he was candid. He told me everything that he thought was pertinent about his candidacy. He told me that he had no health difficulties, and I believe that. I didn't want him to go into the whole medical history of his life, but when these rumors started to develop after the nomination, we thought the best thing to do was to just be candid with the press and tell them exactly what the story was. We heard a lot of false stories floating around, and we thought the best way to nail all of that was to just give a complete medical history on Senator Eagleton. We've done that. We feel relieved that it's done, but I don't regard Senator Eagleton as being lacking in candor at all.
He said that he had talked about it with his wife, this particular medical history, before he talked to you. Now, doesn't that indicate that he thought it was significant in his mind?
He thought that possibly there might be rumors about it, but he saw no point raising it as an issue. He discussed it with his wife. It was, as far as they were concerned, it was a closed chapter in his life, and that's the way I feel about it.
Can you flatly say that if you had known this before you selected him, your decision would have been the same?
Absolutely. There'd have been no difference. As a matter of fact, I think he's to be commended for having the good judgment to seek medical attention when he experienced exhaustion and depression. There may be a lot of powerful people running around this country today who don't have that kind of good judgment, who need a little attention.
Suppose Senator Eagleton, in the face of whatever reaction there is to this announcement, wanted to leave the ticket. What would your attitude be, sir?
I would discourage that. I don't want him to leave the ticket. I think we're going to win the election. I think he's going to be a great vice president. If anything were to happen to me, I think he'd make a great president. I'll do everything I can to discourage any move on his part to leave the ticket. He's not considering that, though, by the way.
Rumors continued to float throughout the week that McGovern, despite his 1,000% endorsement of Eagleton, was considering replacing him. McGovern finally ordered his staff to stop making such speculations to the press. Eagleton, too, was under pressure by some Democrats who talked to him privately during the week. The reaction of the public in the form of mail and telegrams was mixed. In Los Angeles, the Missouri senator held another news conference. ABC's Bill Zimmerman reports.
Heavily in the hot, crowded room, Senator Eagleton told newsmen he was ready again to take their questions on his health. Twice yesterday, he refused to talk any more about it, but he said now he realizes how important the subject is. Eagleton said he may have made a mistake in not fully informing Senator McGovern before he was named to the ticket.
I now wish, because it would have been a finer thing for me to do, that I had had the opportunity to fully inform Senator McGovern. Bear in mind, the time frame on that day was hectic. The decision had been made. I'd been sitting in my hotel room for the whole day, both praying and hoping, and then for the last hour or so, having given up on it, that the difficulty of communication in Miami Beach, and I don't know if you were there, but just to get in and out of the Doral Hotel, or at that time my hotel, the Ivanhoe, was a major undertaking.
Eagleton has enjoyed good health for the past 6.5 years and says he has learned to pace himself. He says he could pace himself if he were to become president.
Were by either fate or tragedy, the office of the presidency could fall on me, I would be confident that having experienced what I had in the past, having learned and profited thereby, that I too would pace myself. Now, whether it would be fishing off of a boat or chipping golf balls on the lawn, probably be something pertaining to water and beaches. I'm going to bear up under it. In a way, I think it's going to strengthen me when this is passed. I think I'll be a wiser person than I was for the 42 years that I lived on Earth.
It appears Eagleton will need all the strength he can muster over the coming weeks. He is sure to face hostile questions and innuendos about his health for some time. But he says he is ready for it, and he has made a standing offer to withdraw from the ticket should his candidacy prove to be an embarrassment or hindrance to Senator McGovern's chances. Bill Zimmerman, ABC News, with the Eagleton campaign in Los Angeles.
On Capitol Hill, Eagleton received the support of many fellow senators, Kennedy and Mike Mansfield. Stated that Eagleton's health will not be an issue. ABC's Ron Clark and Sam Donaldson have reports.
And it prides itself on being a gentleman's club. Today, members of that club closed ranks, publicly at least, around a colleague in distress. Democrats heaped praise on Eagleton, so did some Republicans. Others refrained from any public criticism.
As far as I'm concerned, personally, I have the utmost faith, trust, and confidence in Tom Eagleton. I think he's a senator who is on the way to greatness. He's a man of integrity, understanding.
Do you see any chance that Senator Eagleton will be removed from the Democratic ticket?
Not a chance in the world.
Tom Eagleton is a fine and a decent man. And I say to our opponents, you have made statements which become you. And now go on with the campaign.
Harold Hughes, an ex-alcoholic who was Edmund Muskie's first choice for vice president, suggested Tom Eagleton's past ordeals will make him a better man.
I think regardless of the set of circumstances, that any illnesses that forces an individual to look at themselves, to examine what they are and who they are and their identity, their capabilities with life and dealing with life, serves as nothing more than to strengthen that person.
Some private conversations conflicted with these public sentiments. Off the record, a number of Democrats agreed with most Republicans that the Eagleton disclosures have hurt the McGovern ticket. Bob Clark, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
President Nixon's campaign director, Clark McGregor, delivered the official Republican response to the Eagleton matter at a New York City news conference. The strategy was to take the high road.
We will make no comment whatever about the disclosures from South Dakota yesterday. This, I might add, is not a decision of mine. It is exclusively, that is, it is primarily a decision of the president. The directive to us is to talk about Nixon programs, policies, ideas, and accomplishments, and to not involve in any way personalities in this campaign.
In Washington, Senator McGovern's campaign director, Gary Hart, confidently predicted the Eagleton disclosure would do no lasting harm.
The reaction generally seems to be very good, and most people are sympathetic to the senator's problem in the past and don't feel that it's particularly a detriment at the present time. Now, do you believe that there may be more disclosures, or do we know it all now? I think we know it all. There are no other facts to be known. That he will stay on the ticket, and our initial judgment is very little harm and perhaps ultimately a net benefit. So they're putting the best public face on the matter here at McGovern's Washington headquarters, but the private assessment is not nearly so confident. Obviously, it gives us problems at a top fundraiser. I'm appalled, said one of the senator's close advisors. One more little thing and we're ruined. I take it at least you're happy the president has ordered his people to lay off, inquired a reporter. Oh, yeah, said the McGovern man, and you can bet that once a week between now and November, the Republicans will remind us all that Senator Eagleton's history of nervous disorder is not an issue in this campaign. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, at the McGovern headquarters in Washington.
And the pressure continued to mount all week on McGovern, and Times editorially urged now out. The paper said the hospitalization for nervous tension raises doubt about whether he could withstand the fearful pressures of the presidency. On Eagleton's side, some newspapers praised him for being so candid. Several surveys conducted by Time magazine and Gallup showed 30% of those polled opposed to Eagleton's remaining on the ticket. Eagleton held yet another news conference today and said McGovern was still for him 1,000%. However, the Boston Globe says it has already been decided to drop Eagleton. Senator McGovern's closest advisors predict an announcement about his running mate will come Tuesday or Wednesday. The presidential and vice presidential candidates meet in Washington tomorrow to discuss whether Eagleton should stay on the ticket. Arguments about the U.S. bombing of North Vietnam revolved around the Dike system this week. The elaborate network of dams, dikes, and gates is designed to control the Red River, which floods periodically. The communists have launched an extensive and vocal campaign charging the United States with deliberately bombing the dikes. The Defense Department, the State Department, and even the President have vigorously denied the charges. The Chief of the United Nations, Kurt Waldheim, held a press conference Tuesday and said he had unverifiable reports through private unofficial channels from Hanoi that the system was being bombed, threatening floods. U.S. Ambassador George Bush was sent to tell the UN Secretary General that the reports were false. CBS Newsman Marvin Kalb has more on the Dike story from the State Department.
The administration is growing more defensive about the need to deny again and again that it is bombing the dikes of North Vietnam. But again today, it denied it, while admitting Hanoi has been able to score major propaganda points against the American bombing program. Columnist Joseph Kraft, just back from a reporting trip to North Vietnam, saw bombed dikes, but he does not think there is a policy for their systematic destruction.
I saw two dikes that had undoubtedly been hit by American bombs, and heard many, many other reports. One was near the town of Phu Ly, where I saw a sluice gate in a dike that had been utterly ripped apart, just smashed to bits. Another was in a dike south of the town of Nam Dinh, where you could see enormous bomb craters in the dike, where I could see cracks that had been caused by the bomb craters.
Does that suggest a calculated program of hitting the dikes?
I would think really the reverse. The dikes are a highly integrated hydraulic structure. The American Air Force is not a stranger to routine and order. It seemed to me that if we were deliberately going after the dikes, we would not have the kind of chance rare hits that I saw. We would have very systematic direct hits at the nodal points of the dikes. That clearly is not happening. On the other hand, there are a lot of dikes. They comprise about 2,000 miles. They run parallel to railroads. They run right near roads. Some of the sluice gates look like bridges. I think it would be, given the volume of the bombing and the extent of the dikes, it would be a near miracle if we weren't hitting some dikes.
Mm-hmm. And you did see two that were hit.
I saw two that were unmistakable hits.
The North Vietnamese, who cannot see the distinction between bombing the dikes and having no policy to bomb them, charged again today they are being bombed day and night. And China accused the U.S. of having launched over 100 bombing raids against 58 dike sections and 46 dams. The administration denied it. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
Several foreign journalists who have visited North Vietnam have said the bombings of the dikes was minor and accidental. The North Vietnamese have been blamed with insufficient maintenance of the dikes and poor repairs of the damage done by flooding last year. President Nixon has emphasized that the United States does not intend to bomb the dikes because of the disastrous consequences it could have on the civilian population in North Vietnam. Both the Senate and the House passed anti-war planks this week. Monday, the Senate voted for the withdrawal of all U.S. forces on land, sea, and air from Indochina in exchange for release of American prisoners of war. The Senate approved cutting off funds to maintain U.S. forces in Indochina in 4 months if the POWs are released. It was the first time that the Senate approved legislation cutting off funds for the war. The measure was an amendment to the Foreign Aid Bill, and in a surprise, the Foreign Aid Bill itself was killed. And then another surprise less than 24 hours later. The usually hawkish House Foreign Affairs Committee adopted a similar pull-out amendment by an 18-17 vote. Mariah McLaughlin of CBS reports on the politics of the two votes.
Democrats have an almost what-happened look on their faces today. Late yesterday, the Senate passed a strong end-the-war amendment by 5 votes. The Doves were jubilant, so jubilant that 5 senators who had voted for it left before the final vote on the Foreign Aid Bill, to which the amendment was attached. They were Republican Charles Percy and 4 Democrats, Muskie, Anderson, Moss, and Vice Presidential candidate Thomas Eagleton. The Republicans sat back and began to count the absentees and the votes they could pick up from such doves as Majority Leader Mansfield and Senator William Fulbright, who vote against foreign aid because of principle, they say. And so the Foreign Aid Bill, with its strong end-the-war amendment, was killed by 6 votes. One senator who stood out because he wasn't there for either vote was presidential nominee George McGovern. Said Minority Leader Hugh Scott, McGovern had a great opportunity to put his vote where his oratory is. But it's not over, according to Senator Ed Brooks, a Republican Dove.
I have filed an amendment to the military procurement bill, and this is the second round, and I will call that amendment up. And at some time before the military procurement bill is passed, we will have a vote on the anti-war amendment, which is the same amendment which was passed by the Senate last evening. The Senate did go on record as having voted for an anti-war amendment. And I think now with the military procurement bill as a vehicle, we will be successful.
Senator William Brock, a strong supporter of the administration, was delighted with the way things went yesterday. Today, he said, I think the next time I see Eagleton and Muskie, I might just mention to them how they really missed the vote. Mariah McLaughlin, CBS News, Washington.
The Citadel in Quang Tri City was breached momentarily this week by Republican Vietnam paratroopers, but withering North Vietnamese fire threw them back. The 50-acre walled fortress has been the scene of tough fighting, and the bloodied paratroopers were pulled out and replaced by Marines who had occupied positions east and west of the Citadel. The Communists are entrenched in deep bunkers which can take direct hits from all but the heaviest caliber weapons. In concealed positions behind them, they have a concentration of artillery believed to be the largest ever amassed by the Communists in the war. Although the bombing in North Vietnam has spurred the most headlines recently, the Ho Chi Minh Trail is still being hit, and the trail remains the lifeline to North Vietnamese troops fighting in the Republic of Vietnam. Charles Collingswood of CBS narrates a French communist film of the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
It is not for nothing that the Ho Chi Minh Trail has become one of the enduring legends of the Vietnam War for both sides. In spite of the vast weight of American bombing against the trail, the North Vietnamese managed to reconstruct it as fast as it is bombed, keep it open somehow, and continue to this day to push southward the men, supplies, and equipment to sustain the battle. There is no more frustrating puzzle to Allied commanders in Vietnam than the continued ability of the North Vietnamese to keep the Ho Chi Minh Trail open in spite of the devastation that has been wrought. Obviously, one answer to the puzzle is that the North Vietnamese have better equipment than they used to have, thanks to the step-up in Russian and other communist blockade. They even have bulldozers to make a new path when the old one has been erased. When a bridge on the trail is knocked out by American precision bombing, they have portable pontoon bridges to throw across the river in another place. While they're waiting for that, the trucks will find a ford, or then will swim the supplies across on their backs. The transport the North Vietnamese use now is more efficient and plentiful. A large fleet of rugged Soviet-type trucks instead of bicycles loaded like a beast of burden, although they are still pushed down the trail as well. But the greatest secret of the Ho Chi Minh Trail is the large and apparently indefatigable labor force which the North Vietnamese have deployed along it, patiently filling in the bomb craters or moving the track to another route which may not be detected for a while. The laborers on the Ho Chi Minh Trail are also farmers, and they're still able to grow some rice and hide it in underground caches to supply the men and truck crews going south. The greatest surprise was the 500 to 600 tanks the North was able to bring south for the offensive. Traveling only at night without headlights, their trail was marked by hundreds of people carrying white squares reflecting enough moonlight to show the limits of the roadbed, although the cameraman seems to have used extra light for these shots. The fantastic persistence and ingenuity with which the North Vietnamese have kept the Ho Chi Minh Trail open allowed them to accumulate for the current offensive a much larger volume of supplies than most Allied intelligence officers had forecast. Supplies they have not yet exhausted and still continue to replace despite the bombing of the trail and the mining of Haiphong. Charles Collingwood, CBS News.
In Britain, an estimated 1.5 million workers put down their tools this week as part of a protest strike against the controversial Labor Relations Act and the jailing of 5 longshoremen. ABC's Don Farmer has a report.
Pressure on the government to release the 5 dock workers increased this morning when thousands of airport workers here went on strike. Those flights, the only flight not needing more fuel. Passengers who did fly had to carry their own bags. Outside the jail where the 5 dock workers were imprisoned, thousands of striking dock workers marched and sang. As they waited, the industrial court decided to release the men who went to jail Friday for violating the Labor Relations Act. The men were set free only after Britain's Labor Federation threatened a general strike for next Monday. The court decision also reflected a ruling in Parliament earlier today that union leaders, not the workers, are responsible for the Wildcat dock strike. The transport union now must pay fines and legal costs of $200,000. The strikers considered the release of their men as a victory, but all indications are the battle is not over. Their ultimate goal is to kill the labor relations law. They see their enemy as the ruling Conservative Party.
The 5 of us was ordered by a political court, and it was the trade union movement that got us out.
So it appears that the Conservatives who control the British government have now decided to fight their battle not with the men on the docks, but with the big labor leaders themselves. That could raise the level of protest here, and it could also raise the stakes in this contest to historic political proportions. This is Don Farmer, ABC News, in London.
4,000 more British troops were ordered into Ulster, bringing the troop level there up to 21,000. The Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, William Whitelaw, has declared a crackdown on the Irish Republican Army, and an assault into no-go Catholic areas is expected soon. Troops and police have already arrested 133 IRA suspects, taking a large haul of weapons also. Since the Get Tough policy went into effect this week, more than 1,000 pounds of explosives and 7,500 rounds of ammunition have been seized. The death toll climbed to 479 this week. Those are the stories that made the headlines this week. On behalf of myself, Navy journalist Terry Oliver, and the AFVN News staff, have a pleasant evening and take care.
This has been The World in Review. Highlights of the news stories that made the headlines this past week. The World in Review is a weekly presentation of the American Forces Vietnam Network. Be with us again next Sunday at 7 o'clock when AFVN News brings you the World in Review.
Operation down 7/8, and Emirates down 3/4.